Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to another episode of the Great Cooking in Quarantine. This week, what we are going to be making is something really special. It's something that I get asked for a lot. It's a vegan, yeah, you heard right, vegan chocolate orange cake. So the sponge is going to be vegan, the frosting, everything's going to be vegan. It's easily adaptable. You can make it gluten-free as well by using gluten-free flour. So yeah, enjoy. So first of all, I'm going to give you the ingredients for the sponge, and we're going to make that first. So you're going to need 4.5 cups of self-raising flour. You're going to need 3 cups of sugar granulated, 1 cup of cocoa powder, 1 cup of oil. You're going to need water, plenty of it, roughly about 3 cups. You might need more, you might need less. Bicarbonate of soda, baking powder, and a little bit of salt. So for those of you that are wondering about the measurements and for the ingredients, and I'm using cups this time because it's easier for me to remember, but if you need to know exact amounts because you're that kind of person that likes working in grams, a cup of flour is roughly 120 grams. A cup of oil is roughly 50 grams of oil, and sugar is roughly 200 grams of sugar. Okay, that's just 1 cup. So obviously for this recipe you'll need more than 120 and 200, obviously because of the amounts that we're using. So everything is in the bowl, and what you need to do now is just give it a quick mix. Nothing's going to happen too much yet worth seeing. You're just going to mix everything together, get the oil in there, just give it a nice first start. You might need a big bowl to start off with. As you can see, it starts to go over the sides a little bit, and it's all clumping together because it's still quite dry, even though there's got the little bit of oil in there. All that, the one with the oil there, you can see is in the middle. So what you start doing is you add 1 cup of water first. Okay, so once you've added that cup of water, start mixing everything together. Again, it's going to quickly absorb all the liquid and the moisture, but you keep adding water until you get a firm, smooth batter. So now I've been working on this mix for quite a few minutes now, not that long, but look, you can see if you just put a bit of effort into it and work, it becomes the nice cake batter that I was talking about. Okay, you need to keep whisking it, and at this point is where you turn the oven on, 180 degrees. Again, depending on your oven, like I always say, some ovens work faster than others. So yeah, what you do is you're going to keep whisking this until it becomes smooth, because at this point it's still a little bit lumpy. But what you're doing with this, because we're not using eggs, we need to add extra bubbles into this mix so that it'll get a nice rise, hopefully anyway. So yeah, you just keep whisking it, get all the water, all the oil, everything all mixed in and nice and bubbly. Okay, so the batter is ready, it's all whisked, and what I did is I greased a tin, just a normal cake tin, any size you want. It doesn't have to be circular like this one is, and it can be square, depends on whatever you want. Now with the amount of batter we've made quite a lot of batter here. Okay, so you might have enough, depending on the size of your cake tin, to make 2 cakes, 3. You can use the same sponge for buns, so you can put them in bun cases. There's different ways that you can use it, but as you've seen, it's a nice, easy way of making a vegan sponge. So I'm just going to put the batter in the cake tin and then put it in the oven. The cake's in the oven baking. I'm going to leave it in there for about 15 minutes-ish. Then I'm going to check on it. You might need to turn it a little bit. Remember, always put it in the top part of the oven, in the middle. of the shelf. That way it gets the most heat. Turn it as well as it's cooking while you're checking it as well, so that you get an even bake. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to the next bit of this chocolate orange cake. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an orange jam to put in the middle of the cake. A lot of people, when they make chocolate orange, will put maybe orange juice and let the sponge soak in the orange juice, or put it in the icing. But I tend to do things slightly differently. So yeah, I'm going to make an orange jam, which is going to go in the middle of your sponge. Ingredients for the jam are just orange and sugar. To make the jam, all you do is you peel your oranges, put them in a pan, start heating them up. If you add water to it, some people do when they're making jam, you add water, it's going to take a lot longer because you want the water to boil down. Plus there's plenty of juice in these oranges, so you don't need to add water to it to make the jam. So I'm just going to peel this quickly, and once they're all peeled, like I say, just put it straight into the pan. So I've peeled the 2 oranges, I've mashed them up a little bit so the juice is starting to release, put them in the pan, and I've turned them on to heat. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to let them boil down, reduce, keep stirring. I'm going to add a little bit of sugar in. Now normally with jam you put lots of sugar in, but because the icing is quite sweet, I'm not going to put too much in. For those of you with a sweet tooth, you might want to add a lot of sugar. It depends on the oranges that you use as well. Some oranges tend to be really, really tangy, so you might want a little bit more sugar. If you're using sweet oranges, then you want to use less sugar because there's already that sweetness in there. So the orange has been boiling for quite some time. I've reduced it down. If you haven't got time, an easy way of doing it is when you first peel the oranges, put them in a blender and just blend them up into a pulp, and then start heating them up. Once it's a pulp, that's when you add the sugar. It's a pulp and all the juices come out. So when it's like this is when you add the sugar. Because even if you don't use all your jam, you can store it and use it like weeks after. If you put the sugar in too early into your jam, it'll only last for a few days. But with this, you can get it to last an extra few weeks. Right, as you can see, it's still a bit runny, but that's because it's really, really hot. But it has thickened up loads. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off the gas and leave it to cool. The jam's now ready. The cake is still cooking. I've turned it a little bit. I've even reduced the heat now because it was cooking a bit too fast. So you might want to do that as well. Like I say, jam's ready. I'm letting that cool. So it's time to go away and do other things. So I've just checked the cake, and as you can see there's still a bit of movement, so it's not cooked on the inside. So I'm going to leave it in for a lot longer. But when you do need to check, you can use a knife or a skewer or something, toothpick some people use. But what you do is you put it in the middle of the cake, and if it comes back out and it's all clean, that means it's cooked from the inside. If when you put it in and it comes out and there's still some batter on whatever you've used, it means it's still soft and wet from the inside and it still needs to bake some more. So that's just a quick way of checking to see if your cake is cooked from the middle. Okay, what we're going to do now, because everything's cooled down, is we're going to prepare the icing. What I've used is cocoa powder, icing sugar, and we're going to make a buttercream icing. So because this is vegan, we're not using butter, we're using margarine instead. So what we're going to do, as you can see, equal amounts of cocoa powder and icing sugar, because I want it to be a dark icing, a little bit of the margarine as well, and this you use to your own consistency. If you want it to be a lighter icing, use more margarine. If you want it to be a darker one, use less and a bit more cocoa powder. But this is entirely up to you. What you do now is just mix them and beat them all together. What I'm doing first is mixing the cocoa powder and the icing sugar together, and then just mix the margarine in. Now I'm using a fork just to get it started. Now as you can see, that's not enough margarine, so what I'll need to do is add a bit more margarine. But what happens is you need to start mixing it all together. like this first, okay? And you just keep adding the margarine in as you go along. At this point, because it's chocolate orange, I saved a little bit of orange juice from earlier on. So what I'm going to do, which is why this is a drier mixture than it normally would be, I'm going to add a little bit of orange juice. Now, you might need to add more in a bit. That's why I haven't put loads in to start off with. Just put it in a bit at a time. Okay. As you can see, it fairly soaks up that orange juice and the margarine pretty quickly. The margarine's still not fully blended in, but you can see now it's starting to get the colour and it's starting to take up the consistency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more orange juice in. Just to get everything all together, make it all come together and bound it in together. There you see, now it's starting to look like the icing that you'd expect. You can still see bits of margarine in there, so you really need to work at this. You can use a whisk if you want. I use a fork in this situation. I'm sure there's easier ways of doing it, it's just me. Now you can see it's still a bit lumpy, so you need to work all those lumps out. Right, so as you can see, this is done. Now, because we've added a bit of orange juice, it's not as thick as it would be, or as smooth. Okay, so if it does look like that, you see all the little bubbles, that's the orange juice reacting with the margarine. So that you get those little fine bubbles on there. But I think that makes it look cool. So you can see it's not as thick as it would be, but then that makes it easier for us to spread over the cake. Right, okay, what some people might want to do is cut the cake in half, put the jam in the middle, or alternatively, I know I should have said this at the start, you can make two cakes and split the batter in two, so two smaller layers, and put the jam in the middle. What I like, and it's just something that I do, is I'm going to put the jam over the top, let it harden, and then I'm going to put the icing on top of that. Okay, so I'm going to get the jam. The orange jam's been cool for quite some time, and I'm taking it straight from the pan, and as you can see, it's a nice beautiful orange colour, and I'm just going to put it across the top. So because the icing's been sat for quite some time, I'm just going to give it a stir. And remember, like I said, it's still a bit wet and soft, but then we're just going to splash it on top. Can you see how it just goes on? Beautiful. Doesn't matter if it drips down the sides, because it's not entering a cake competition, we're just going to eat it. So those of you that know me know I'm not really one for decorating, but just get it all on there. And now, as you can see, it's all covered in chocolate. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it in the fridge for a while, let it chill, and then it's ready to serve. Thank you for watching this episode of Cooking in Quarantine and the last episode of this series of Cooking in Quarantine. Hope you've enjoyed all the videos, hope you've enjoyed making all the different recipes, adapted them to your tastes. Look forward to seeing you soon. Keep an eye out, there's going to be a book coming out soon as well of recipes. So enjoy. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.